Hey guys, we have been getting a ton of questions about Jenni Kayne's fisherman sweaters, both cotton and cashmere versions, compared to Quince. If you don't know Quince is, this sort of like direct-to-consumer online website that popped up. It's similar to Everlane, and they have been making some like pretty rock star basics for some like shockingly affordable prices. And overall, we found that the Quince basics have actually been like really, really good. So when Quince started making a fisherman sweater that looked exactly like Jenni Kayne, everybody of course wanted to know if it held up, what the differences were, and so that's what we're gonna talk about today. So I've been wearing Jenni Kayne fisherman sweaters for years. They are my absolute favorite sweaters. I love them with a passion. I like the fit, I like the sort of like nonchalant vibe. I now have them in multiple colors in both cashmere and cotton. So I can highly recommend these sweaters with no reservations. I love these things. For me, they've been worth the cost, but they are pricey. Jenni Kayne will sometimes do a 20% off sometime in the spring and sometime around Black Friday, and that's when I usually snap up my Jenni Kayne. But just to give you an idea, the cashmere sweater retails for $395 and her cotton sweater retails for $345. So these are, investment pieces. I wear mine all the time. They've totally won me over. And I'll get into why specifically in a minute. But the cotton Quince sweater is literally under $40. It's $39.90. And the cashmere sweater is just under $90. It's like $89.90. The price difference is huge. Let's do a little compare, shall we? All right, so one major difference between Jenni Kayne and Quince is the difference in the color range. So both lines have sort of like the basic neutrals covered. They have black, they have navy, they have ivory, and they look very similar. After that, they sort of deviate down very different paths. Quince prefers these like really like intense, bright, super saturated hues. There's, this bright blue, there's a magenta, and so that's sort of like, where Quince is playing. On the other hand, this is what I think is so special about Jenni Kayne. This brand has gone down the path of making the most beautiful range of neutral colors. So this is like an olive green, right? It has like a little bit of gray, and it is really just like beautiful. Like it's much more beautiful than most olive green sweaters that I've seen on the market. There's a lot more like a high-end look to the Jenni Kayne sweater just based on the color alone. If you're looking for something like bright and fun, Quince is definitely worth taking a look. But if you're looking for some sort of that like neutral but special, it's hard to beat the Jenni Kayne color palette. Like you can't. But other than that, let's take a quick peek at the sweaters themselves. In terms of fabric, there is very little difference between the Jenni Kayne and the Quince 100% cotton fisherman sweater. The Jenni Kayne knots, the actual individual knots in the sweater, if you look closely and get really picky, and I think we should, we're here to get picky, the knots in the Jenni Kayne sweater are just the tiniest bit smaller, tighter, and overall they look less puffy. I don't know how else to say it other than the knots of the sweater are just like less puffy. The Jenni Kayne sweater, in my opinion, is the more comfortable sweater. I hesitate to describe the Quince sweater as scratchy because that is not at all what is happening, but the texture is it's slightly rougher, and the slight extra puffiness in the knots does affect the fit a tiny little bit. If it wasn't for the hand feel, I probably wouldn't even know that this wasn't a Jenni Kayne sweater. The fit is dead on. You notice the slight, puffier knot when you try to tuck the Quince sweater in. Tucking in a cotton fisherman sweater is, it tends to be a little bit bulky, but I can tuck the Jenni Kayne in no problem. And while the Quince sweater does tuck in, it does feel like the slightest bit bulkier. It's up to you to decide if that is worth a $300 price difference. That to me is the biggest difference. The fact, between the color and the fact that the Jenni Kayne sweater overall is just like a little bit smoother. It drapes a little tiny bit better. So yeah, that's the difference. All right, so let's move on to the cashmere sweater comparison. So again, this is a fisherman style sweater, Jenni Kayne versus Quince, but it's an 100% cashmere this time. Let's talk about color first of all. So for this particular sweater, Quince did go the way of like beautiful neutrals. And there are 5 really pretty neutrals that Quince offers in the cashmere fisherman sweater. Jenni Kayne, on the other hand, went with 10. So if you're, trying to get a neutral that will flatter your skin tone, Jenni Kayne has so many to choose from. There's literally 10 absolutely gorgeous colors. If you look closely at the knots, you can see even in this like gray, There's like tonal variations that are just absolutely stunning, and so many of her colors have that. You know, that said, Quince did come up with 5 like respectable color choices, and they're really pretty. I was surprised trying on both the Quince sweater and the Jenni Kayne that, again, like the fit is very, very similar. I will say I find that the Jenni Kayne sweaters have a little bit more room in the arms overall, and so the overall fit and feel is a little slouchier than the Quince sweaters, but I find that lower cost cashmere sweaters, sometimes they do skimp on that sort of feeling of like slouchiness. So, you know, and again, if we get really picky, we're gonna get picky, and we look like at the knots between the Jenni Kayne sweater and the Quince sweater, you can see that the Quince sweater overall, the knots are a little bit looser. The knots on the Jenni Kayne sweater are a little tighter. They kind of like hang together a little tiny bit better. Those do account for some of the differences you see in the $300 price tag. So lastly, the biggest difference though between the Jenni Kayne and the Quince sweaters, the Quince sweater is see-through. And while you could point to the color difference, I've actually tried on Jenni Kayne's sort of light, I did a really light oatmeal color, and I sent it back because it didn't happen to be flattering on my particular skin tone, but it was definitely as light as this. It was not a see-through sweater by any means. This is definitely a much less expensive cashmere sweater, and it does show. I actually think that the difference between the Jenni Kayne cashmere sweater and the Quince cashmere is a pretty big difference, where the cotton versions were much, much closer. In fact, the Quince cotton sweater is kind of a steal. I still really like Quince's cashmere sweater, but it is not nearly as good as Jenni Kayne's. All right, so in summary, I think, you know, if you're trying to decide between Jenni Kayne and Quince, I think for cashmere, Jenni Kayne is the clear winner. You know, unless you just wanted like some affordable black cashmere sweater, then, you know, the Quince one is pretty close. But other than that, I think Jenni Kayne wins hands down. The cotton sweaters though, ooh, that is kind of a toss-up. Quince cotton fisherman sweaters are pretty dang good. So it really just comes down to the color selection in that case, I think. So anyway, hope this helped, guys. Let us know if you want us to do any more comparisons. And yeah, if you liked this video, we'd love if you would give a like. Thanks.